Max Payne 3 is probably my favorite non-GTA Rockstar game. I love this game, I cannot state it enough. The gunplay is almost unmatched and still holds up extremely well even almost a decade after its release. The way the bodies and enemies react to being shot, the amazing one-liners from Max himself.
So much for a lazy Sunday afternoon. My next trick would be a high wire act with a fiery pit for a safety net. It was nice that no one was shooting at me for a change, but I'd take shot in the head over a slow roast on a spit any day of the goddamn week.
And of course, the famous bullet time mechanic, being able to slow time down to a crawl to the point where you can see bullets pass through you. This is still a really cool game mechanic. This game is probably up there with some of my favorite third-person shooters. And you might be telling yourself, wow Max, you're giving this game some praise. You ever feel like 100%ing it? No. But I will go for its artist achievement. The Shadows Rushed Me. Complete New York Minute Hardcore mode. In this mode, you have to complete the entire game without dying once while on a massive time limit. Oh yeah, and it's one shot, there's no break system in this game. Yeah, this is where the real men are. The timer starts at a minute, but can be increased by gaining kills throughout the campaign, and different kills have differing amounts. Normal body shot kills are about 5 seconds, headshots are 6 seconds, melee kills are 10 seconds, on-rail sections are usually 2 seconds, and explosion kills, they vary. I have no idea how they gauge explosion kills. All in all, this is a real simple achievement, but tell me the last time you played through a game from start to finish without dying once, and that's including stupid mistakes. Yeah, this game likes to play, unfair. So I cleared a day off my schedule, woke up bright and early, and started grinding away. Something I should mention before we start going in through the actual gameplay, I have a cutscene skip mod for this game, and trust me, for fair reason. This game has a grand total of 200 plus minutes of cutscenes, and that's like basically half of the playtime you get from even doing this stupid achievement. To even unlock Hardcore New York Minute, you have to have already beaten the game on Normal New York Minute, which is a timer on every level, and the base game on of itself with cutscenes already, so that's like 2 times you have to beat the game in order to even attempt this challenge. I beat the game like 5 times. I earned this cutscene skip mod, alright? But the reason why I bring this up is because every single level transition has this deadpan Max stare, and even looking at it recording my voiceover. I can't help but giggle. Like, every mission starts off with this. This picture is my mood. I love this picture, and this was worth it. Mission 1 sees Max playing bodyguard for Rich Man Bronco at a house party, and I mean, hey, I can't blame him. That's like an easy job right there. Free booze, sit around being posing. Easy job. It was an easy job. Consider this level a warm-up because, trust me, the difficulty kind of spikes a little bit afterwards.
I had to keep moving.
What's up?
I didn't want to fuck this up more than I already had. Richard Rock. Was I too late?
Rodrigo, I'm here!
So after a traumatic event that the Bronco family just went through, what do you think their next plan of action is? Lie low, maybe hire some more security? No, let's go to a nightclub. Like, okay, fine, maybe the nightclub's super secure or something, but why are we still bringing just 2 bodyguards? You were on the receiving end of a human shield not 24 hours ago, lady. You kind of deserve death. Hey, again, maybe we're going to overreact. Maybe the club is super secure, some of the highest security. Yeah, no, this place was never secure. We move through the club in an attempt to catch up to Mr. Bronco's wife in order to save her, because she's just like a kidnap magnet. I kid you not, you'll see more of this later. Now, compared to Mission 1, Mission 2 has a much higher density of enemies, but for the most part, they all push from like one side of the room, so if you can just find out which side they're pushing from, just pre-aim and shoot them. It's not that hard. We finally catch up to Mr. Bronco's wife, but we're a little bit too late to save her, but we can still save the sister Fabiana, and then we just play Sniper Elite. There's no way I'm gonna sugarcoat it. Look at the cinematic cam, this is just Sniper Elite. Pro tip, you can toggle off the laser sight for your sniper, and I find the reticle to be much more accurate than the laser sight, which can wobble from time to time and make you miss some shots. So after we finish sniping some fools, we then have to drop down and secure Fabiana on the floor. There's not too much to worry about on the rooftop, just, you know, take your time, check the corners. Some enemies like to camp in the corner, so be wary. Although I will say, if enemies come out of doors, usually they follow in pairs of 2, so always double check the doors before you move on. And with that, we're done with Mission 2 and are moving on to Mission 3. Mission 3 sees us exchanging money in a desperate attempt to try and trade back Mr. Bronco's wife, and unfortunately, the trade-off spot was ambushed by a third party. Rats. Okay, last time I will nitpick about this, but why is Mr. Bronco's security detail just like me and Pazos? Like, you don't have anyone else in your security detail? Oh yeah, the second person in Mr. Bronco's security detail, Pazos. He's nice. At the start, it doesn't seem like too much has changed, and then we run into the Merc Company. Now, the difference with the Merc Company, aside from the average gangster, is that they wear body armor, and the body armor is very effective in this game. And when I mean they have body armor, I don't mean they have extra health. No, I mean they have, like, actual body armor that the bullets will just bounce off of. Luckily, they're not protected in the head, and if you do shoot them in the armor, they still get stunned, so try and use this to be like John Wick and do some follow-up shots. After some close encounters, we find a sniper's nest and take care of them. Afterwards, we drop down and Pazos supposedly gives us sniper cover. He doesn't really do any sniper cover in this section. After a shootout in the stands, we move up into a VIP area. Be careful in this VIP area because enemies will just spawn out of nowhere from the left side, so I'd suggest pushing from the left side so you don't get shot in the back. Afterwards, we head up to an elevator and get to the top stands, and we must, and I repeat, must jump off this extremely large staircase and kill all the enemies in the Leap of Faith. Jumping from here is mandatory, and I don't want to hear anyone telling me that it's not. After the Leap of Faith, we take care of another sniper dude and play sniper. Oh my god, I just made this joke last mission! Oh, and this section's way more accurate because there's actually bullet drop. I really should have watched ahead, but I have like hours of footage, so... Would I just spell how many hours I have? Playing a Sniper Elite here isn't that bad when you realize the bullet drop only ever goes to these black bars. Thankfully, the game gives you plenty of time to take care of the threats heading towards Pazos' location. As long as you actually line up your bullets and listen to his callouts so you can pre-aim for where enemies will be, you can take care of this section relatively easily. This section may seem easy, and it actually is. Basically, whenever you're out in the open, a laser sight will be pinpointed at your head, and it fires a sniper shot after about 2 or 3 seconds. So as long as you stay in cover along this wall right here, you can easily avoid the laser altogether. We end off the level by climbing some scaffolding, killing a couple more people, and taking care of the sniper. I also should mention this now in the run, because of the amount of enemies you kill in level 3 and level 2, you basically never have to worry about your timer for the rest of the run. I mean, I finished this entire level with 8 minutes to spare.
Nice.
When you think about it, the timer section of this achievement really isn't even the issue, it's just beating the entire game without dying once. Mission 4 is a flashback to when Pazos first hired Max to come work for Mr. Bronco. I mean, hey, to be fair, going from the Pope of the washed up drunk cop church to washed up drunk cop bodyguard, I mean, hey, you take what you can get. We eventually get into some trouble with some gang members because they need to prove that they have balls. Well, guess what? Now you have a giant hole in your chest to boot. And we now just initiate a two-man gang war. We then get into some close quarter shootouts in this bar, and it's kinda dicey to be honest, not gonna lie. This is probably the most close quarters you've been the entire playthrough, and probably will be for a long time, so try to take your time and learn the enemy spawns of this level. It helps a lot. This part of the level is seemingly not that bad, it's just some close quarters combat, you know, pre-aim, bullet dodge, you know the whole spiel. The only challenging part is this alleyway with all the cars, because sometimes the enemies just won't push up, so your only option is to try and blow up the cars in hopes that it kills them. No matter what you do, don't leave cover here because you can just die instantly here for some reason, and I really don't know why that's the case. The gangsters show up and start raiding the apartment building. Nah, this is nothing. We took out like 40 of those dudes, me and Pazos. Pazos, where are you going? Pazos? And then Pazos just leaves us immediately. Get used to this, by the way. To start off this section, I usually kill the gangsters with the laser sights on the rooftop. Not that they pose any much of a threat, but I just like to be a little bit more safe when I'm crossing this hallway. And plus, a little bit more time never hurts. We then move up to the rooftop, and yeah, no, this section's kind of weird. Enemies will just spawn behind these buildings right here, just seemingly out of nowhere, so just pre-aim and be very careful. Like, the millisecond you vault, some enemies will just spawn out of the woodwork, so I'd suggest having a fully automatic gun here just to be safe. After that, we do this cool water tower shoot dodge moment, which I used in the intro, by the way, and then we meet up back with Pazos. Where'd you go, bro? The next area is this abandoned building, and this building is pretty annoying. Enemies will hide in corners and peek you the moment you even decide to look down a corridor, so just abuse the third-person camera and take very wide peeks while always aiming, and you should be able to get through this area relatively okay. We then fall into this garage, and I usually like to start this section off by shooting the explosive barrel right here. It kills about a few goons and gives you some more breathing room in this section. Afterwards, we have to go into the backyards, I guess? And enemies here are still COD Warzone players. We're just camping here. Yeah, no, pre-aim and make sure you're very careful in this section. You don't want to die right here at the end of the level. Thanks to some information we gathered from torturing a poor soul in Mission 3, we've now found the location of Fabiana and we're on to Mission 5. At the start, you really should stealth kill these two guys on the truck because if you don't, then 3 more guys just spawn around the corner. I, unfortunately, didn't kill the second man and had to kill the 3. It's not too much, but it's just nice to not be surprised and lose some extra health. We then start getting into some shootouts in the warehouse, and this game does something weird that I don't like. Whenever you're about to blind fire out of a window, Max will just break the window as opposed to shooting through it, so I'd usually suggest dipping out of cover from the window and shooting that way so you don't waste time breaking the window for some reason. We then move over to a shipping container area, and I cannot keep quoting Captain Price enough that you should just check those corners every single time. Most of the enemies either front face you or just hide in corners like COD players. I need to keep making that joke. We make our way into a boat warehouse and get another pain moment. Is it bullet dodge or pain moment? I actually don't remember. We clear out the warehouse, open the door, pop some more goons, clear out this warehouse, get into this dockyard where there's way too many enemies. Some spawn on the right side and then they spawn on the left side, so clear out the right side first and then push your way over to the left side. In addition to that, clearing out the right side gives you more cover to work with. After that, we probably get to the trickiest part in this entire level, the piers. The piers themselves aren't bad, but there is something you have to know. Environmental hazards. If you were to accidentally roll or bullet dodge into the water with enemies around, the enemies would just instantly shoot you in the head, which is kind of funny, but at this point you've already been playing the game for at least 30 to 40 minutes and you don't want to lose all your progress because you accidentally jumped in the water. In addition to that, every single problem you've faced up to this mission is present here. Enemies like to hide around corners and make no sound, so you have to check the corners on the boats. Enemies coming out of the woodworks on boats themselves to shoot at you and then never coming back again, so you have to waste bullet dodge time to shoot them. Very low healing, huge sightlines, and not a lot of cover to work with, and this entire section's kind of just a mess to work with. It's not bad by itself, but when you have to perfect the game, and the tiniest mistake could make you restart your entire run, it's nerve-wracking to say the least. Afterwards, we find Fabiana on a boat, and then initiate a cool boat chase sequence to catch her. Yeah, This section kinda sucks. Enemies here only give you 2 seconds when you kill them, which is not enough time. Thankfully for us, I had 17 minutes at this section. Dear God, I started this mission with like 8. Anyways, the boat's not that bad. Just make sure your LMG doesn't overheat. I've never once had this LMG fully overheat, so just practice aiming. It's not that bad. You'll eventually come across a section where our boat will start chucking Molotovs at you. Make sure you use bullet time and shoot these no matter what. They deal a lot of damage to your speedboat, and your speedboat doesn't heal that much in this section. Afterwards, in a Hail Mary attempt, one of the gangsters accidentally blows up our boat's engine, and we're slowly just paddling down the creek. This part isn't really that bad. Because you have an LMG with infinite ammo that never needs to reload, you can just pre-fire all the spots where the enemies come from. Add into the fact that you have bullet time, and this section's kind of just a cakewalk. Just aim, shoot, bullet time, you know the drill at this point. It's really not that bad, if I'm being honest. I immediately take back everything I say because this gas station part is so weird. Instead of having a set amount of enemies push and kill you, you actually have to shoot all the explosives around the gas station to make it blow up, and then the section continues. I kind of just don't like this part. Reminder, your boat does get a health reset, but wasting all the health here is really not recommended. So usually what I do is I try and pre-fire the giant propane and gasoline tanks so I can get a head start on this section. Afterwards, we kill some enemies on some land vehicles, do some more boat chasing, and then we get to the climax of the stage. The climax is a giant shootout where just 2 boats magically appear out of nowhere, so I'd usually take them out and then focus some fire on the big boat. It really doesn't matter because this is all just timed until we can get to the sweet epic pain moment. Shoot about 4 enemies and then the mission ends because the Deagle ran out of ammo and the boat broke. Now, I'm blaming the Deagle. We should have had extendo mag on that. Mission 6 has the liberty of probably being the shortest mission in this entire game aside from the first mission. It's really not too bad except for the finale, which might as well be one of the hardest sections of the entire run. To start off with, we're stuck in an office space with some close quarters combat. Most of the enemies here are somewhat armored and have fully automatic weapons, so I'd always suggest picking up some of their guns. The section isn't really too bad, although the enemies do have that body armor that I mentioned, so once again, make sure you at least stun them and follow up with some headshots. The tricky section in this mission is this giant open office space with destroyable cover. Now, normally this section isn't too bad, it's just the enemies are super spread out, and it can make finding them a little bit difficult. But then the second wave of enemies come, and we have to protect our tech guy, and this part you can fail at. I failed at it before. Now, this part isn't too bad, but once again, because of how open the room is, the enemies will spread out, and it'll take you some time to find them. My general rule of thumb is to not leave the wall where you start, because if enemies flank around to that wall, they'll kill the tech guy, and that's an automatic mission over. You really don't want to be losing to something that was out of your control. Afterwards, we head over to the lobby, do a cool pain moment, and afterwards are introduced to the Armored Heavy Boys. Now, the Armored Heavy Boys aren't that bad, but these are probably one of the most threatening things you can have in the entire game. Usually, for the most part, they take about 100 odd bullets to kill and are very tanky. They don't really get stunned that much. So the best option is to find some permanent cover and take pot shots at their head as much as you can. If you can dual wield both your sidearms, that would be insanely helpful for killing them. After we clear out the lobby, we kind of get a checkpoint because this mission's also in 2 parts. And the second part is the part I was worrying about. In this part, we see Max gravely injured, and you cannot heal at all in this part. This part of the mission is extremely dangerous since about 2 bullets are needed to kill you. So I'd recommend playing very safe and making sure out of all the enemy spawns in the game, you remember the ones in this part of the mission because it will be life-changing. After threatening to leave a merc into a well-done steak, he then coughs up the fact that the mercs were actually there to kill Max and not Mr. Bronco. You failed big time. You killed everyone but Max Payne. So within a minute of being in the favela, we get mugged, pimp slapped, thrown in the garbage, and then end up at a strip club. We meet up with a cop Da Silva who's basically been telling all the messes we've been living all over the place. We did shoot up a stadium that just doesn't get covered up. Oh, wait, it did get covered up. Anyways, he basically sits down and literally just points out the big bads to us. This guy has a funny mustache, this guy has a burned face, this guy's the brother of the guy we were supposed to protect. They're all gonna die soon. Anyways, he hands us a gun and tells us to go commit crimes. I'll happily oblige, and then we immediately start committing crimes. I was happy to oblige like 4 seconds ago. Despite this being my 7th playthrough of this game, roughly speaking, this mission still took me a whole 13 minutes to clear. And this mission isn't exactly a walk in the park. There are enemies everywhere. They have high ground, low ground, bust out windows that are previously closed, double spawn on doors, AK-47s,
Rocket launcher.
Again, this level really is one of the hardest in the entire run, so I'd recommend practicing this one a fair bit. We then make our way into a warehouse. We trigger another pain moment and now must shoot our way out of the warehouse. We then camp in this little room until a man with an Uzi is polite enough to open the door to the other side for us. Once you exit the warehouse, you kind of have a decision to make. Now, in my experience, usually if I don't start combat in this section, the entire mission will break from me. So what I usually do is I look into the right on the 2nd floor and shoot this guy with a red kind of bandana. This usually triggers a fight scene in this section, and I always take this fight scene because every time I've ever skipped a fight scene in this section of the mission, it always crashes on me. And it does it like 6 minutes inwards as well. You're never going to know until you get to that point, so you kind of just waste your time frolicking around a stage that you're never going to complete in the first place. Anyways, you make your way through the linear path, climb some stairs, have a small shootout in this little section, and then you basically play Rainbow Six Siege, going room to room, door to door, clearing out enemies. This part isn't too bad, but every single door here has an enemy, so, you know, double check it. Oh my god, he had a shotgun, you're kidding me. After a little while, you'll eventually find this interesting area with this blue house. I usually try and bait the enemies here because having this little bit more high ground and cover is usually more preferable than being down in the grass where they have high ground and you have less cover to work with. When enemies stop coming, slowly make your way to the blue house as more will spawn as you make your way to it. Hopefully, if your game works, you'll trigger a cutscene where I'll knock on a door and basically bust into a drug lab. After that, we get into the last section of the entire mission, and this one can be game-ending. To start off with, you're automatically at a low ground disadvantage against enemies that have cover. Also, out of nowhere, they just randomly throw a Molotov at the left side, so make sure you don't take cover at left side because apparently I've seen that insta-kill some people. You then have to make your way through this very open space where enemies will basically spawn from every single direction. Memorize these spawns, and I kid you not, they're everywhere. Forward high ground, left high ground, right middle ground. The enemy spawns are brutal in this section, and I'd suggest you learn them. You could always skip it, but then I have to deal with enemies behind me shooting me and maybe even spawning behind me, and I'd really just not deal with that. To end off this section, there's a random goon with an RPG. Make sure you hit this RPG because if it misses and kills you, guess what? You have to replay the entire first half of the game all over again because you missed a slow motion Max Payne time. After all this time, we finally find Fabiana, and the first thing Max does is just bust into the room and give up. What was the purpose of this? Anyways, it turns out her brother and sister-in-law have also come here as a part of a ransom. Didn't we already find out that ransoming with these guys didn't work out so well the first time? Where did you guys even get the money from? Yeah, it turns out Bronco's wife died.
Oh no!
Anyways, what we've been spending the first half of the game trying to keep alive dies on the spot.
This was a huge waste of my time.
And then we flash back into Mission 8. Max is saying goodbye to his family as he makes plans to leave the city to go work with Pazos. He once again is ambushed by the gangsters of that one dude he killed, and then we have to shoot our way out of the graveyard. To start off with, this mission's not too bad. The only issue I can really see with this is that you start with a pistol, but the pistols in this game are pretty good. It's not going to take too long before you get a submachine gun. Make sure you shoot this guy in the van. It'd be embarrassing if you were to die to this guy. And then we enter another shootout. And I didn't do it in this footage, but I'd recommend picking up the grenade launcher to clearing groups of enemies because it will come in very handy. I guess I was too scared about self-damage or something. After that, we come up to probably what is the buggiest section of the entire game. So basically speaking, we have to drop on these hitmen, and for some reason, Pazos just kills one and then runs past them, and if we don't kill the hitman fast enough, they'll instantly kill Pazos and we'll get a mission failed. Thing is, it just doesn't matter what you do sometimes. Sometimes you'll kill one dude and then Pazos will immediately die. Sometimes you start moving and then Pazos will immediately die. Nothing you do will save this guy. You are basically left to the luck of RNGesus in order to even get past this section. I failed this mission in practice mode so many times because of this random Pazos glitch. It's honestly just luck whether or not he lives. It doesn't make any sense because the direction he runs towards spawns like 3 dudes out of nowhere, so like Pazos just used instant transmission and got out of there. We make our way through the small courtyard. Usually in this courtyard, I like to start on the right side and go around leftwards, killing all the enemies I see. Afterwards, we find Pazos being held at gunpoint. Just shoot the guy, it's kind of hard to fail this, and then you get into another open area shootout. This section is tricky because you're not given a lot of cover to work with, and you're immediately out in the open, so I'd suggest using as much slow-mo time as you can to kill as many enemies as you can, and then try and play like crouch peekaboo with whatever cover you have to kill the rest of the enemies here. Afterwards, we get to what is arguably the hardest part of this entire mission, the sniper tower.
Sniper monkey.
Now, if you were a smart gamer, you'd have kept the grenade launcher to kill all the enemies that bust through this door as soon as you can so you can make more progress on killing the sniper. I'm not smart, so what you usually have to do is wait for Pazos to give you covering fire, and then you run around to try and flank the sniper and kill it. Usually there's 2 waves of enemy, and they only ever come the closer you get to the tower, so what I try and do is try and bait out the second wave of enemies so I don't have to worry about them while I'm trying to kill the sniper. Unfortunately for me, I was getting impatient with the enemies and decided I could rush the sniper without sprinting, and I found out something cool. The sniper's not bolt action, it's semi-auto, which means he'll just double pump you to death. And I lost the run. I died with 27 minutes on the time, and I could not feel compelled to play it again. Not that an hour was too long, but it was already mentally exhausting. I died at the halfway point in the game, and basically died trying to do a trick that I'd never practiced before. So, shame on me, I went to bed and readied up for another day. It's a new day, new me, and a brand new Max Payne run. Let's get it! I'm not gonna go over all these runs. Listen, if I could do Mission 1 yesterday, I don't need to explain to you why I could do Mission 1 on present day. Mission 1 is the same. Mission 2, the same. Mission 3, the same. I missed a sniper shot. Mission 4, the same. Mission 5, ignore that. I'm past it like an absolute Chad. Mission 6, easy peasy. Mission 7, sweating nuts. Mission 8, I actually fixed my mistake this time. Wait, this is the wrong run. Yeah, so turns out apparently somehow I killed Fabiana on this Max Payne boat moment, and I gotta call bullshit right here. First of all, look at where the reticle is, and then look where she is. Look at me fire, and then I'm doming her head. Are you kidding me? Did I really though? I know I only played roughly like 20-30 minutes up to this point, but I did not feel compelled to do another run today. Day 3. For the most part, I was playing a little bit more comfortably because the muscle memory of all these earlier levels were already in my head. Mission 1, easy. Mission 5, I didn't mess up this time. Actually, I didn't even make it to Mission 5. You want to know why? Roughly around the point in Mission 4, I had to take a pause so I could go give medication to my grandmother, and while I was gone, the game crashed. Yeah, cool. I was gone for about 4 minutes, and then the game just crashed, so, you know. Are you kidding me? Cool, awesome. That's cool. I just decided to quit and start again the next day. Okay, so, I'm roughly demoralized, but not too much. I've been making good progress, and my only real loss was just to a technique I didn't even try to practice. I died to a game crash, a bug, like, Give me a break. Back at the graveyard. This time I'm actually waiting out the enemies, and I gotta tell you, these tombstones provide absolutely no cover. It was a nervous wreck. Unfortunately, we immediately get ambushed. God, Max gets ambushed like so much in this game, it's not even funny at this point. This is basically the godfather of the son we killed all the way back in Mission 4, and instead of just killing Max on the spot, he has us dig our own grave. You know what? Him and Bronco should be friends because they only put 2 security guards on the most wanted man in the entire city. So naturally, we use our amazing athleticism to get out of the situation. The Godfather must have hired these guys from Weenie Hut Jr. Anyways, we make our way to a church in hopes that we can find a phone to phone a friend. Heading up to the church, we now have to hold our position against a wave of gangsters, and this usually isn't too bad. You have decent cover. If you've been collecting weapons, you should be well supplied with ammunition. Eventually, one hitman with the high ground will be threatening our position, so you as Max must go upstairs and take care of them. And immediately after this, you get into a kind of shaky part of the mission. A horde of enemies will start rushing Pazos' location. If they get within breathing distance of the man, he'll just instantly flop over, die, and mission failed. It'd be embarrassing if you lost to this section. No! Love you, boredom, no hard feelings. So I'd suggest staying on the high ground and basically just playing duck hunt with all the enemies that come out. And with that, we are now on our way to Mission 9. If I could describe Mission 9 in one sentence, I'd say this. This is where the real game begins. We are introduced to the Ufei, which are the most dangerous enemy types in the entire game. These guys are armored practically head to, like, neck level. Not all of them wear helmets, but they are pretty armored and take the most bullets to kill. They also wear helmets, which allow them to take a bullet to the head. Thankfully, the helmets pop off after one headshot, but it just means you have to be more careful because headshots are no longer a guarantee against most of these enemies. The Ufei kind of don't mess around. They have high power weapons, extremely durable armor, and are always in groups, so there's never just one of them. Playing against them is always super stressful because if you don't have the right weapons, it takes dozens and dozens of bullets just to kill one Ufei. So I usually just recommend doing the armor stun technique where you shoot the enemies to stun them with armor and then you just run up and melee them to insta-kill them. It's risky, but I'm gonna be honest, it's just time efficient for me. One section that's going to be very specific for me and not helpful for a lot of you, when you get to this section, immediately book it to the stairs. I've had the dude in the helicopter somehow shoot me for almost all of my health, and I'm still confused to this day how. If you're really hungry for points, you can kill all the Ufei members in the area, but for the most part, they're all optional. As long as you just keep moving along this path and trigger this helicopter pain moment, you're fine. We then come across the Ufei doing something strange. So far as of it, they've basically just pulled a KOS order on everyone in the favela, but now they're taking some people alive for reasons we don't know. After that, we get into another combat section. Don't do what I do here. Instead, kill the 2 people on the bridge and then wait out the rest of the Ufei members to come out of hiding. It's very risky to be on this bridge with very little cover and close to no medical supplies. However, you are close to the end of the level, so don't worry if you're running too low and stuff. After that, we make our way into a convenience store and get jumped like once again. Dear God, how many times are we going to get jumped in this campaign? Either way, it turns out the bozos that jumped us are actually stupid and just run into oncoming Ufei patrol. We then find out that the Ufei are trading hostages to the Merc company that killed Bronco and jumped us at the stadium. And now you get into probably, I kid you not, the hardest part of the entire game. QTEs! This part sucks. I cannot express how much this part sucks. It took me like 6 tries to do this mission because the QTEs in this game are actually stupid. Number 1, this is the only point in the entire game where there's a QTE event. Number 2, We are quite literally 4 missions away from the ending of this game, and you can get all of this lost by a simple QTE event. No shame whatsoever if you die here, but good luck crawling back for the hour plus you spent getting here. At this point in my run, I was at 80 minutes with 31 on the clock. And if I died, I was going to be extremely upset. I even went as far to have a guide open mid-run so I could literally look and see what keys I needed to hit in order to pass the QuickTime event. I'd suggest you do this as well because trust me, it's actually stupid. The one saving grace of this section is that the QTEs don't pull a Resident Evil 4. They don't randomize, which means they'll be the same no matter how many times you replay this mission. Unfortunately, we were too late to save, Marcelo? I don't know, he's turning into a burnt marshmallow, so then we have to take Fabiana, and now we make our way onto Mission 10. Mission 10 starts with us calling Pazos for backup. To truly start this mission, you start with a shootout in this little junkyard, and soon after, you're getting peppered by snipers. Take care of the snipers as soon as you can. After you let a cutscene play out, you then get a pain moment on this crane, and this one's not too bad. It's actually pretty easy. If you kill all the enemies here, you basically just skip an entire section, so that's pretty good. You then encounter some enemies in a very open garage. I'd suggest taking cover in the corner and taking care of all the enemies from a very far and safe distance. Eventually, 2 guys will spot Fabiana in an attempt to kill her. I'd usually suggest just shooting the guys outright, but if you shoot the platform, they both fall and die. But again, it's better to be more direct and just kill them to begin with. Immediately after you shoot the 2 guys, face to your left and take care of the oncoming enemies. Like I said, this game just loves to spawn enemies out of doorways from nowhere, so make sure you don't get killed by them. Afterwards, you enter another bus garage and get into another shootout. This one's not too bad because you have all of the high ground. Just make sure you check both sides of the bus and inside the bus for any enemies. Afterwards, you enter this sort of office space, and this part's also not too bad. Just slowly take your time and pre-aim the corners. All the enemies here kind of just face you directly, so you don't have to worry too much about double checking. Just continue what you've been doing the entire playthrough. Pre-aim, use slow-mo if you really need to, and make sure you always keep your weapons loaded. After that, we enter an on-rail section with a bus. I mean, tell me, whatever games let you do this. I've never had too much trouble with this section because, again, you're given a MAC-10 with infinite ammo. I've never had too much trouble with this section. The submachine gun you're given has a pretty high fire rate and infinite ammo, so it's really just a matter of looking at where the targets are and killing them. There is this one section where in a tunnel there will be a dude with an RPG, but this is like the 4th RPG you've shot this entire campaign, so it shouldn't be too much trouble. Afterwards, we crash the bus and now have to hold our position with an infinite ammo assault rifle. How come we couldn't use the assault rifle on the bus? This section is pretty annoying, and for one sole reason only. The enemies use grenades here. If any grenade lands next to you, it's an insta-kill. So always save max pain time so you can shoot the grenades, because one grenade is all it's going to take for you to restart 90 minutes of gameplay. Other than that, this section usually isn't that bad. I'd suggest focusing on the enemies on the ground more than the enemies that are getting out of cars, because they pose the more immediate threat. But I've played this section so many times that I was basically just pre-aiming where the enemies came from. It's not too bad because your assault rifle has infinite ammo, although you do still need to reload it. Just make sure you don't take too much damage here. Mission 11 has the liberty of also being a pretty long mission. There's nothing overly difficult about this mission, it's just more or less an endurance test. In it, it's yet another flashback to what happened with Max and Pazos before he started working with Mr. Bronco. You make your way through the lower rooms of the ship. This isn't too bad because you can deck into the bedrooms for extra health and some extra protection. You'll then enter the engine room with about 3 or 4 guys, so I'd suggest just using bullet time on them. Afterwards, you'll set the entire place on fire, and it doesn't blow up automatically, which is good for us. Turn off the emergency fuel valves, and when the door opens, immediately peek either to the left or right. There will be 2 guys on either side, so I'd suggest just pre-peek one so you can shoot them, and then automatically rush the other side so you can kill the other guy. Afterwards, we head up topside and have to take care of more of the pirates. They do have the high ground in this section, but I usually find it more appropriate because the stairs here give you pretty good cover, and you can usually shoot them before they're able to get a good shot on you, so I'd suggest using the stairs to your advantage here. Afterwards, it's more or less the same. Make your way through the ship's rooms, check those corners. There's only so many times I can say this before I'm getting exhausted, right? Afterwards, it's business as usual. Max pain time whenever you have to do it, I don't care at this point. At the backside of this dock, you then find pirates grapple hooking onto the boat. In actuality, I don't know why they're doing this. Like, the boat's parked and they already have a land bridge onto it, so... Did I just say the boat was parked? The boat's probably anchored, not parked. You eventually come to this pretty difficult part again on the outside of the yacht because there are going to be enemies from the mainland shooting at you in addition to enemies on the boat. I'd usually try and focus the enemies on the boat or pre-aim the enemies off land before I try making any more progress. Afterwards, head up into the captain's deck and kill about the free goons in there, and then you'll automatically transition into the next section. We regroup with Pazos in an attempt to rescue the VIPs on the boat. We then get to the shootout on a tower section, and this part's not too bad because again, you're given good cover and some good range. Once again, take your time, check the corners, and make your way through the tower to trigger a pain moment on the zip line, and this is roughly the last stretch of the level. Afterwards, you have to go through a building clearing a couple goons, and this isn't too bad. The goons don't really hide in corners that much, and they more or less tend to rush you, so it's actually really easy. We find all the VIPs dead, and Max and Pazos just looking dumbfounded or something. I don't know what they're doing here. And then we cut back to present. After the bus holdout, it turns out Pazos came in a helicopter and only saved Taviano, so Max is just sitting there acting like me on a Monday, figuring out that, oh yeah, I have to go through 4 more days of the week with this. And then out of nowhere, De Silva comes by and then offers us a ride. I mean, it's better than explaining this mess this time. He gives us a ride and then starts questioning us about the entire liability of Pazos and whether or not he's trustworthy or not. Max finally puts the pieces together and figures out that he's probably been being played this entire time, so De Silva offers him this. He's found the stronghold of the Merc Company, an abandoned building meant for demolition. He asks us to find some information linking all the pieces together. We gladly take it to see it all the way through, and then we start Mission 12. To start off with, Mission 12 is more or less the same. Nothing stand out really, it's just the Merc Company, but we've already had to go through an Ufe level, and the Ufe are considerably worse than the Merc Company. I'm not even sure I can even sugarcoat how easy this level is in actuality until the ending. It's really just, again, like playing peekaboo, crouching, checking corners. How many times can I explain the basic Max Payne gameplay loop without it sounding boring? It's really just better if you play it yourself. One tip I'll give for this level is to use assault rifles and shotguns more than your pistols, because halfway through the level you'll lose your assault rifle. There's not a lot of secondary ammo in this level, so it puts you in a really tough spot if you don't save pistol ammo. Afterwards, we find out what the Merc Company is really doing. Turns out they're a black market for human trafficking in organs. After this section, we climb an elevator, and this is like the gameplay reason why we don't have our secondary, but if you're listening to what I said 30 seconds ago, it's better to use your assault rifle ammo than your pistol ammo, so luckily you can kill at least a couple people to pick up one of their guns. When you get to the tennis court, pre-aim this door right here. Usually about 3 or 4 people come out of it, and you can easily just kill them. Afterwards, take it slow and steady as you move your way back into the hotel. Afterwards, we then come across what seems to be the main doctor for the entire human trafficking, drug, organ, donor, selling thing.
Não, não. Por favor. Pelo amor de Deus. Por favor, não me mata. Não, não. Pelo amor de Deus. E aí, doutor?
We leave him to die and then move on with our day. You then find C4 and then have to place on some demolition columns. Be extremely careful around this part because eventually enemies will come after you've placed enough explosives. You can dictate where they spawn depending on which explosives you place, but I usually just went up and put an explosive on the pillar. After that, kill some enemies, and then you'll have this interesting sniper section. Probably the only one in the game where it's not just Sniper Elite. You have to kill enemies across on another building with the sniper, although you can only see them when you zoom in with the sniper itself. So it's best to take care of them, but then the game will pull a dick move and kind of just spawn enemies right behind you whenever you're not paying attention. So I'd say kill at least 2 laser sights, maybe 3, and then immediately exit the sniper and pre-aim the gate behind you. Aim down sights, shoot. Pre-aim, use slow-mo time whenever you have to, pill up whenever you have to, and move on through the building. And then we finally encounter Mustache Guy. I don't remember his name. Pull the explosives, and now this is where the real game begins. This entire section from start to finish, including the finale, is basically timed, whereas if you take too long, the entire building will collapse and you will get a game over. And trust me, I'm almost an hour and a half into my run at this point, and I don't want to lose because I was being too patient on the time attack mode. Something that's recommended for this achievement is to keep the sniper, because there's an upcoming heavy boy fight that you can make 8 times easier by taking a sniper. I didn't take a sniper because I did not know about this until I finished the game already. There's not too many enemies here, just play it slow and use the bullet time whenever you have to. Eventually, you'll come face to face with the heavy boy, and this is pretty not good. He has high ground and you don't have full body cover, so it's best that you try and kill him as soon as you possibly can. But unfortunately for me, yeah, that was a pretty stupid move. And in case you were wondering, I had no bullets left in my gun after that last stand. I quite literally got saved because of the golden gun effect. Is it cheating? No. After escaping through the skin of our teeth, we then stumble over the explosions again. Why? Like if this wasn't already annoying. Mustache guy talks too much, and then Pazos comes to save us out of nowhere. Thankfully, most of the conflict that we've been trying to do in this game is finally finished. Pazos and Fabiana are safe and are finally leaving the city, while Max and Da Silva have some loose ends to tie up. Enter Mission 13. Now, this is the hardest mission in the entire game. For reference, here's the guide I was using for this entire achievement, and as you see, they have their own little graph for the most difficult missions. As you can see, for the most part, I'd say this graph is fairly balanced. And then you get to Mission 13. You want to guess the spike up to Mission 13? Yeah, that's Mission 13, and this is Mission 14. And let me tell you, that graph is not wrong. This mission is hell! What does this mission have? Let's start with it. Ufe members. Ufe member there. Ufe there. Ufe member everywhere. Armor, 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 and helmets, baby. I hate this. I hate all of this. Most of these enemies are armored. There's not a lot of health to work with. It's always close quarters. In addition to that, there's also this APC section, which lasts way too long. All you really have to do is just, you know, sit in cover and take the RPG off the random gangster who just had an RPG, and it takes so long for this thing to stop shooting. It's not hard by any means, just nervous. Afterwards, it's more Ufe, and more Ufe. There is so much Ufe in this mission. Conserve your ammo. Maximize the amount of bullet time you use. This mission is so painful to play through. This mission took me 18 minutes to get through, which is the longest I've spent on a mission yet, and rightfully so. This stupid elevator smokescreen section, which makes it borderline impossible to see the enemies. Also, I don't know what it is with heavy boys, but like every single time I see one, I just enter last stand mode to them. I don't know why I'm suffering this massive skill issue to them, but they also take like 16 years to kill. Just always stay in cover against the heavy boys. Never leave cover to kill them. This was really bad gameplay on my part, and I'm just getting rewarded with luck at this point. Afterwards, we run into this police captain, and then we trigger this cool, epic paint cart moment. I can't keep doing that impression anymore. This building section also is kind of annoying, but you can just peek the two ways the enemies can come from, so it's not too bad. Afterwards, we move through a shooting range and then an armory, and then finally we get to the climax of the level. This giant office space is just extremely annoying. For starters, this is kind of a boss fight. I prefer to stay in the high ground for as long as I can before I have to move down to the ground level to trigger the rest of the enemy spawns. After you kill all the enemies, you then start the quote-unquote boss fight with the captain. Rule number 1, pre-fire the captain whenever you can. The captain has automatic high ground but will never peek if you're even so much as aiming towards his location. So if you ever want to switch cover, just apply suppressing fire to the captain and then move. This boss fight's also kind of weird. In order to actually progress in the boss fight, you have to shoot the roof above the captain to make the lights fall so you can then just get him to force him to peek you. I don't understand the logic behind that. You have to shoot both sets of lights until they fall, and every time a light falls, a little cutscene will play where enemies will magically spawn at the end of it, so make sure you're not in a bad position when that happens. Usually, I prefer to try and get an angle where the captain can't shoot me, but I can apply damage to the roof. And after about a minute or so of doing this, I was finally able to click on his head and end the mission. Yeah, I don't know why the mission just instantly ends the millisecond I click on his head, but I just find that funny. Welcome to the last mission of the game, and for the last time, this is where the real game begins. So it turns out that the Ufe and, I guess, Senior Bronco were actually in cahoots with, you know, human trafficking, drug, you get the entire thing. We failed to capture them and now rush to the airport to deny their escape. The airport really isn't that bad of the level, but it basically throws more or less everything else that you've had to be going through the entire game. Ufe, cheap enemy placements, not a lot of health to work with, not a lot of cover to work with, but I'd suggest replaying this mission a fair bit just so you can get more used to it. Same with mission 13. Afterwards, play some more peekable, and then you eventually enter the main airport. This section is pretty long, but might as well just be one of the easiest sections in the second half of the game. Because you're given so much room to work with and such long sightlines, you can basically kill almost all the enemies before you even make it to the next section. So I'd advise bringing an assault rifle with lots of ammo so you could just camp at the over end of this entire terminal hallway. We then move into a subway section, which also isn't too bad because, again, we're given long sight lines and some solid cover. So, once again, take care of the Ufei. And then we get on to the train section. This is actually probably the hardest part of the mission. What I prefer to do for this train section is run all the way up to the forward cart. This is because if you run all the way up to the top, the train will slowly show you all the enemies car by car, so that way you can take care of them one at a time rather than all of them at once. Eventually some enemies will board your train, and this isn't too bad really. I just suggest pre-firing them. You then have a pain moment where you dodge through both trains and must take care of the Ufei on the other train. There's only about 3 of them here, but make sure you double tap their corpses because again, there's body armor and they're probably not showing their head to begin with. Finally, after all of that, we have come to the last section of the entire run, and this is where the real game begins. In this section, the Commissioner has both a shield and a grenade launcher that he'll be shooting at you with the entire section, so get comfortable. You can, however, shoot the grenade launcher, so what I recommend is whenever you see one, activate bullet time and then shoot it. There's a lot of enemies to kill here, and it's a pretty uncomfortable section. If you move away from any of these luggage carts, the Commissioner will automatically shoot you and game end you, and trust me, you don't want to be game ended at this point. What I'd usually suggest doing is just trying to focus on the Ufei that are already in the ground rather than the ones that come in cars. This is a pretty nerve-wracking section, but if you can keep your cool and manage your bullet time well enough, you can thankfully get by it and finally put down the stupid Commissioner. Okay, so I may have been lying. If you notice the plane taking off in the last section, yeah, Bronco's on that plane, and we now have to chase it down and prevent him from escaping the country. We then get onto this car section, and I'm going to be honest, this car section is probably pretty difficult for the sole reason that the grenade launcher has a pretty weird arc when you're using it. I'd suggest playing this mission until you can get used to it. In addition to that, it has quite a lengthy reload time, so I'd suggest getting good with this grenade launcher before committing to this challenge. Your objective here is to destroy all the vehicles in your path as you protect the world's speediest sedan, like this is able to catch up to a plane about to take off. And with that, we have finally earned Max Payne's The Shadows Rushed Me. They really didn't. It had like 40 plus minutes left over.
55th Battalion of the City Police's Special Forces Unit, who have been implicated in human trafficking, has been disbanded indefinitely. Meanwhile, Victor Bronco, the politician at the center of the scandal, who is accused of laundering money from the scheme to fund his political campaign for mayor, was yesterday found hanged in his police cell. It's not yet clear whether his death was a suicide or simply retribution for his part in a scandal that has so many families missing loved ones that were kidnapped and killed. City officials say a full investigation
Local
is
justice.
underway. Local residents expressed outrage, saying they have been let down by both law enforcement and city leaders. And now, your local forecast. Boy, it's dark in some places, but it's sunny everywhere else. Over to Marisol with the weather.
Hey everyone, this is Sleepy Gamer Max. It's 4 a.m. as I am recording this final voiceover for this Max Payne video. I just wanted to thank everyone for watching this far. I also want to give a shout out to Beyond Boredom for essentially beating me to the punch for this achievement. I filmed all of this footage back in July of 2022, but because of the way I work, it took me about a year to finally complete the video. And he uploaded his in March, so touche to him. I will also put a link to the Steam guide I used for this run, for this achievement, in the description in case any of you are insane enough to try this yourselves. I really wouldn't recommend it, it's not worth it. I always wanted to do these achievement type videos, and to be honest, I think I probably just got off on a rocky start. I will admit, watching this back, the video is a little bit too guide-like, when I never went in with the mentality of this being like a guide, but I guess that's more or less just me taking after my source material, so I'll definitely improve the next time I do one of these, which might just be soon. I wanted to branch out and do, you know, something a little bit more than Mimi videos, and I am going to continue doing this at least for a little while. But I find it funny how this and the Kingdom Hearts video I uploaded back in late May were basically gonna be like two of my last videos I've ever done, in addition to one video that I'm working on right now. And yeah, you all saw how the Kingdom Hearts video went out, so thank you for any and all support I've gotten on that, and well, hope I can continue entertaining you in the future. So I'm gonna go to bed. I have work in like 5 hours, and I will catch you all later.